Chapter 6. The howl that split the dawn air wasn't one of greeting, it was a declaration of war. Luna jerked awake in Kai's arms, her moon-blessed senses screaming danger before her mind fully processed the sound. The silver light that perpetually danced beneath her skin flared bright enough to illuminate their small cabin, and she felt Kai's muscles tense against her back. "How many?" she whispered, though she already knew. The approaching auras pressed against her consciousness like storm clouds, dark and violent and familiar. 15. Maybe 20. Kai was already moving, reaching for the clothes scattered on the floor. His amber eyes had shifted to wolf-bright gold, and Luna could smell the battle-ready tension rolling off him in waves. "Your father doesn't do anything by half measures." Luna's blood turned to ice. "He brought a war party. To my territory." Kai's voice dropped to a growl that raised every hair on Luna's arms. "To our home." The possessive way he said "our" sent warmth flooding through her chest even as terror clawed at her throat. 3 weeks. They'd had 3 precious weeks of peace, of learning each other's bodies and hearts, of pretending the outside world didn't exist. She should have known it couldn't last. Another howl echoed through the mountains, closer now, and Luna recognized the voice that had once sung her lullabies and later screamed at her to control her abomination of power. Robert Blackthorne had come for his daughter. Luna. Kai's hands framed her face, forcing her to meet his eyes. "Whatever he says, whatever he threatens, you belong here. With me. With us." She covered his hands with hers, memorizing the warmth of his touch. "What if I can't control it? What if I hurt your pack? Then we'll deal with it. Together." His thumb traced the silver scar on her cheekbone, the one she'd gotten the first time her power had exploded outward. "I trust you." The words were a lifeline in the storm of her fear, but before Luna could respond, the cabin door splintered inward. Robert Blackthorne filled the doorway like an avenging god, his massive frame blocking out the morning light. His dark hair was streaked with more silver than Luna remembered, his face harder, more weathered. But his eyes, those pale blue eyes that matched her own, burned with the same cold fury she'd grown up fearing. "Daughter." The word was silk over steel. "You've been playing house." Kai stepped in front of Luna, his body a living shield. "Alpha Blackthorne. You're trespassing. I'm collecting what belongs to me." Robert's gaze flicked dismissively over Kai before settling on Luna. "Did you think you could hide forever, little moon? Did you think I wouldn't find you? I'm not yours to collect." Luna moved to stand beside Kai, her chin lifting in defiance even as her power roiled beneath her skin like a caged beast. "I made my choice." Robert's laugh was winter sharp. "Choice? You think a Blackthorne has choices?" He gestured, and his war party flooded into the clearing around the cabin, massive wolves with eyes like chips of ice, all bearing the Blackthorne mark. "You are the moon blessed. You are power incarnate. You belong with your blood, not with these strays." "Careful," Kai warned, and Luna felt the Shadow Pack's presence gathering in the trees around them. Outnumbered, but fierce. Ready to fight for their Alpha and their Luna. "You've turned her soft," Robert continued, his attention fixed on Kai now. "The girl who could level mountains with a thought, and you've made her weak with sentiment." "I've made her happy," Kai said simply. For a moment, something flickered in Robert's eyes, surprise, perhaps even pain. Then his expression hardened again. "Happiness is a luxury our kind can't afford. Power demands sacrifice." "Your power," Luna said, stepping forward despite Kai's protective instinct. "Your sacrifices. I won't be your weapon anymore, father. Won't you?" Robert smiled, and Luna's blood chilled at the expression. "Marcus, bring them out." Luna's half-brother emerged from behind the war party, and her heart clenched at the sight of him. Marcus had always been Robert's golden boy, the perfect heir, but now he looked haunted, his dark eyes shadowed with something that might have been guilt. Behind him came 3 wolves Luna didn't recognize, and the scent that rolled off them made her stomach turn. They smelled wrong, like metal and chemicals and pain. Their eyes held an artificial glow, and when they moved, silver light flickered beneath their skin in a pale imitation of her own power. "What have you done?" The words tore from Luna's throat. "What was necessary?" Robert's voice held no regret. "You weren't the only moon-blessed child born to our bloodline, Luna. Your cousins showed potential. With the right encouragement, the right procedures, we've managed to awaken similar abilities." Luna stared in horror at the three wolves, her cousins, barely out of their teens, their eyes empty of everything but pain and artificial light. "You experimented on them." "I enhanced them," Robert corrected. "Just as I'll enhance others, once you return home and help me perfect the process." "Never." The word came out wreathed in silver fire, and every wolf in the clearing took a step back from the raw power in her voice. "Then your new pack dies." Robert's smile was arctic. "All of them. And when you're kneeling in their ashes, you'll come home and do exactly what I tell you." Kai's growl filled the air, echoing from the throats of his gathered wolves. "You want a war, Blackthorn? You'll have one. Will I?" Robert's gaze settled on Luna again. "Tell me, daughter, how many of your new friends are you willing to watch burn to protect your rebellion?" The question hit like a physical blow. Luna's power surged, responding to her emotional turmoil, and the cabin windows exploded outward in a shower of silver-touched glass. She could feel it building inside her, enough raw energy to level the entire mountainside, to turn this conflict into a wasteland of ash and regret. But Kai's pack was here. Innocents who'd welcomed her with open arms, who'd given her a home when she had nothing. She couldn't risk their lives, couldn't let her power run wild among the people she'd grown to love. 10 seconds, Robert said conversationally. "Then we start killing them one by one until you cooperate." Luna closed her eyes, feeling the weight of impossible choices pressing down on her shoulders. Use her power and risk destroying everyone she cared about, or surrender and condemn her pack to death anyway. 5 seconds. "Father, stop." Marcus's voice cut through the tension like a blade, and Luna's eyes snapped open to see her half-brother stepping between the war parties. His face was pale but determined, his jaw set in a way she remembered from childhood, when he'd stood between her and Robert's worst rages. "This is wrong," Marcus said, his voice carrying clearly in the mountain air. "What we've done to the cousins, what you're planning, it's monstrous." Robert's expression didn't change. "Stand aside, boy." "No." Marcus's hands began to glow with his own power, not the artificial light of the enhanced wolves, but the true golden fire of his alpha bloodline. "I won't let you hurt her anymore." "Marcus, don't," Luna started forward, but Kai caught her arm. "Let him choose," Kai murmured. "The same way you did." Robert studied his son for a long moment, and Luna saw something flicker across his face, disappointment, perhaps. Or recognition. So be it. He moved faster than Luna's eyes could follow, his shifted form a blur of dark fur and gleaming fangs. But Marcus was ready, meeting his father's charge with a roar that shook the mountainside. The two alphas collided in a fury of claws and power, golden fire clashing against shadows. Marcus was strong, trained by Robert himself, but he was fighting a legend, and legends didn't fall easily. Luna watched in horror as Robert's claws found their mark, tearing through Marcus's defenses like paper. Blood sprayed across the clearing, bright red in the morning sun, and Marcus stumbled. "No." Luna's power exploded outward, but it was too late. Robert's final blow sent Marcus crashing into the tree-line, his body broken, his golden light flickering like a dying candle. "Marcus." Luna broke free of Kai's grip, racing to her half-brother's side. He lay crumpled against a massive pine, blood staining his shirt, his breath coming in shallow gasps. "Luna," he whispered, his hand reaching for hers. "I'm sorry. For everything. For not standing up sooner. Don't." Tears streamed down her face as she gathered him close. "You're going to be fine. I can heal you, I can." "No." His grip tightened on her hand. "Too much damage." But I can. I can give you something. Before Luna could ask what he meant, Marcus pressed their joined hands to his chest. His remaining life force flooded into her, not the artificial enhancement of the tortured cousins, but pure alpha power, the birthright he'd never wanted, flowing like liquid gold through their connection. Luna gasped as the energy merged with her own, amplifying her moon-blessed abilities to levels she'd never dreamed possible. The silver light beneath her skin blazed like a star being born, and she felt the mountain itself trembling in response to her power. Use it, Marcus breathed, his voice already fading. Save them. Save everyone. His eyes closed, his hand going limp in hers, and Luna felt the moment his spirit left his body like a physical wound. Marcus. His name was a broken whisper on her lips. How touching. Robert's voice cut through her grief like a blade. My weak son, throwing away his life for sentiment. But his power suits you, daughter. Now you truly understand what you're capable of. Luna looked up from Marcus's still form, and Robert took an involuntary step backward. Her eyes had gone pure silver, blazing with enough power to blind. The air around her shimmered with heat, and every plant within 20 feet withered and died, unable to withstand her presence. You killed him, she said, her voice carrying harmonics that made the earth itself groan. You killed your own son. I killed a traitor. But Robert's confidence was cracking now, uncertainty flickering in his pale eyes. As I'll kill anyone who stands against me. Luna rose to her feet, Marcus's lifeless form cradled in her arms. The enhanced wolves behind Robert were backing away now, their artificial power nothing compared to the storm building inside her. Even his war party looked uncertain. You want to see what I'm truly capable of? Luna's power pulsed outward, and trees began to crack and fall. You want to understand what it means to face the moon-blessed? Kai appeared at her side, his presence a steady anchor in the hurricane of her rage. Luna. Look at me. She turned those blazing silver eyes to him, and he didn't flinch from the cosmic fire he saw there. I know you want to destroy him, Kai said quietly. I know he deserves it. But this isn't who you are. He killed Marcus. He tortured our cousins. He did. Kai's hand touched her cheek, heedless of the power crackling along her skin. And if you let that rage consume you, if you become the weapon he tried to make you into, then he wins. Luna stared at him, seeing the love and trust in his amber eyes even as her power threatened to tear the world apart. Around them, both packs watched in tense silence, waiting to see which way the storm would break. She looked down at Marcus's peaceful face, remembering the boy who'd secretly brought her cookies when Robert locked her in her room, who'd covered for her when her power first manifested, who'd finally found the courage to stand against their father when it mattered most. There's another way, she whispered, understanding flooding through her like dawn. Luna gently laid Marcus's body aside and stepped forward, her power still blazing but controlled now, focused. Robert stood his ground, but she could smell his fear. I challenge you, she said, her voice carrying to every corner of the clearing. Alpha to alpha. Winner takes all. Robert's eyes narrowed. You're not an alpha. I am now. Luna's smile was sharp as winter starlight. Marcus gave me his birthright. His power recognizes mine. I am alpha of the Blackthorn line, and I challenge you for leadership of the pack. A murmur ran through Robert's war party. This was old law, sacred law, that no alpha could refuse without losing face forever. And when I win? Robert asked. When you lose, Luna corrected, the enhanced wolves go free. The experiments stop. And anyone who wants to leave the Blackthorn pack can choose their own path. And if I win, which I will, you return home. No more running. Luna nodded. Agreed. Kai stepped closer, his voice low enough that only she could hear. Luna, you don't have to. Yes, I do. She turned to face him, drinking in his features like she was memorizing them. He won't stop. Not ever. This ends now, one way or another. Kai's jaw clenched, but he nodded. Then win. The two alphas faced each other in the center of the clearing, power crackling between them like summer lightning. Robert was larger, more experienced, shaped by decades of brutality and conquest. But Luna burned with the fire of two bloodlines, enhanced by grief and love and the absolute certainty that she was fighting for more than just her own freedom. "Last chance, daughter," Robert said as they began to circle each other. "Come home willingly, and I might let your new friends live." "No." Luna's power pulsed, and the very air seemed to bend around her. "I am home." Robert's roar of rage shook the mountains as he shifted, his human form exploding into the massive black wolf that had terrorized Luna's childhood nightmares. But she didn't flinch, didn't run. Instead, she let her own shift take her, not fully into wolf form, but into something between, something new. Her body elongated, silver light coursing through her like liquid metal, her hands becoming claws that could slice through reality itself. She was Luna Blackthorn Shadowmere now, heir to two legacies, and she would not be cowed by the monster who'd made her childhood a hell. The battle that followed would be remembered in pack lore for generations, the daughter of starlight against the alpha of shadows, power clashing against power in a display that lit up the sky like a second sun. But that was a story for another time. For now, Luna simply fought, not for dominance or control, but for the right to choose her own destiny. And as the mountain trembled beneath their fury, as both packs watched in awe and terror, she finally understood what Marcus had given her with his dying breath. Not just power. Hope. If you're still listening to this story up to this point, why don't you subscribe to this channel to continue getting impactful daily stories like this? We would be most grateful if you can do that to help boost this video to reach everyone. Thank you. Chapter 7. The moment Luna's claws met her father's throat, the world shattered. It wasn't the physical contact that broke everything, it was the explosion of power that erupted from Luna as 20 years of suppressed rage, amplified by Marcus's dying gift, finally found its target. The silver fire that had been building inside her since childhood didn't just destroy Robert Blackthorn's body, it tore through the very fabric of what made their species whole. The scream that ripped from Luna's throat wasn't entirely human, wasn't entirely wolf. It was the sound of reality itself being unmade. Power poured out of her in waves that rippled across dimensions, and in that moment of absolute fury and grief, she reached into the mystical bonds that connected every mated pair in the supernatural world and severed them. All of them. At once. The psychic backlash hit her like a physical blow, and Luna collapsed beside Robert's lifeless form, her body convulsing as thousands upon thousands of broken connections screamed through her consciousness. She could feel it happening, across continents, across oceans, the sacred mate bonds that had existed since the first werewolf drew breath were simply gone. In the Shadowmere pack lands, Sarah Chin stumbled and fell to her knees in her garden, her hand flying to her chest where her bond with Thomas had lived for 30 years. The warm, constant presence that had been her anchor through every storm suddenly vanished, leaving behind a hollow ache that felt like losing a limb. 300 miles south, the alpha of the Riverside pack dropped the phone he'd been holding, his conversation with his mate of 15 years cut short as confusion flooded his features. The woman's voice on the other end turned from warm familiarity to polite bewilderment. She knew his name, remembered their children, their life together, but the deep spiritual connection that had made them two halves of one soul was simply absent. In Scotland, a young wolf who'd just found his mate the week before began to weep, not understanding why the beautiful woman who'd made his world complete now looked at him like a stranger. The love was still there, the memories intact, but the unbreakable bond that had told them they belonged together had been cut clean through. And in the clearing where Luna lay shaking with the enormity of what she'd done, Kai pressed his hand to his chest and felt the absence of her like a physical wound. Luna. Her name was a broken whisper on his lips. He could see her, touch her, knew with his mind that she was his mate, his chosen one, but the bond that had sung between them since the first moment their eyes met was gone. The constant awareness of her emotions, her location, her very life force that had become as natural as breathing, silent. What have I done? Luna's voice was raw with horror. Around the clearing, both packs were staring at her with expressions ranging from confusion to terror. Some of the mated pairs were reaching for each other desperately, trying to recapture connections that no longer existed. Others stood apart, suddenly uncertain of relationships that had once been their anchor. But it was Elena's reaction that made Luna's blood turn to ice. The older woman stood at the edge of the tree-line, her face pale as death, her eyes wide with a knowledge that spoke of secrets kept too long. As their gazes met, silver light flickered beneath Elena's skin, just for a moment, but enough. You felt it, Luna breathed, understanding flooding through her. You felt what I did because you're moon-blessed. Elena's voice was steady, but Luna could see the tears tracking down her cheeks. I'd been hiding it for 40 years. The clearing erupted in shocked murmurs, but Elena's attention was fixed solely on Luna. I felt the moment you broke them all. Every bond, every connection. Do you understand what you've done, child? Luna struggled to her feet, Marcus's borrowed power still crackling through her like poison. I didn't mean to. I was just so angry, and the power, it just. Intent doesn't matter. Elena stepped closer, and now Luna could see the silver scars that marked her arms, old wounds from a power kept ruthlessly contained. You've severed the sacred bonds. Without them, our species will die out within a generation. Wolves won't be able to find their true mates, won't be able to reproduce, won't be able to maintain the pack structures that keep us civilized. Then I'll fix it. Luna's hands glowed with desperate energy. I'll put them back, You can't. Elena's words hit like physical blows. The great severing was prophesied in the oldest texts, a cataclysm that would end our world as we know it. Once the bonds are cut, they can't simply be retied. Kai moved to Luna's side, his presence still comforting even without the mate bond to amplify their connection. There has to be a way. Elena's smile was heartbreaking in its sadness. There is. But the cost. She looked between Luna and Kai, and her next words came out as barely a whisper. The bonds can only be restored through the willing sacrifice of the one who severed them. Luna would have to give up not just her power, but her life force itself, to undo what she's done. No. Kai's voice was iron. Absolutely not. It's the only way, Luna started, but he cut her off. I said no. He turned to face her, his amber eyes blazing with a fury that had nothing to do with the missing mate bond. I won't lose you. Not after everything we've been through. But the species. We'll find another way. Kai's hands framed her face, forcing her to meet his gaze. You are not responsible for saving everyone, Luna. You didn't choose to be born with this power. You didn't ask for any of this. But I chose to use it. Luna's voice broke. I chose revenge over control, and now. She gestured helplessly at the clearing, where the evidence of her catastrophic mistake surrounded them. Robert's war party was in chaos, some of the wolves celebrating their sudden freedom from bonds they'd seen as chains, others weeping for connections they'd never fully appreciated until they were gone. The enhanced cousins stood apart from everyone else, their artificial powers flickering uncertainly. Without the natural pack bonds to anchor them, the chemical modifications Robert had forced on them were becoming unstable. There might be another way, Elena said quietly, drawing everyone's attention back to her. In the oldest prophecies, it speaks of two moon-blessed working together to restore what was lost. I'd been hiding my abilities because I was afraid of what might happen if anyone knew, but now. She spread her hands, and silver light danced across her palms, not as bright as Luna's, but steady and controlled after decades of careful practice. You're saying we could fix this together? Hope flickered in Luna's voice. Elena nodded. The ritual requires two sources of moon-blessed power, one to anchor the bonds in the spiritual realm, one to weave them back into the physical world. But Luna. Her expression grew grave. Only one of us would survive the process. The energy required would burn out whoever serves as the anchor. The clearing fell silent except for the wind through the trees and the distant sound of wolves howling, not in celebration or challenge, but in mourning for something they'd lost without understanding what it was. Luna closed her eyes, feeling the weight of impossible choices pressing down on her again. Save her species at the cost of her life, or live with the knowledge that her moment of rage had doomed them all. I'll do it, she said finally. I caused this. I should be the one to. No. Elena's voice carried an authority Luna had never heard from her before. You're young, powerful, still learning to control your abilities. If anyone is going to serve as the anchor, it should be me. I've had 40 years to prepare for this moment. You knew? Kai's voice was sharp with accusation. You knew this could happen and you didn't warn us? Elena met his gaze steadily. I hoped it wouldn't. I've spent decades studying the prophecies, learning to contain my own power so it couldn't trigger the severing. But when Luna's abilities began manifesting so strongly, when she came to us running from her father's experiments. She sighed. I should have told you both the truth from the beginning. Why didn't you? Luna asked. Because I was a coward. Elena's admission was barely above a whisper. I'd already lost my mate to my power once, years ago. The first time I manifested fully, the energy feedback nearly killed him. He survived, but he was never the same. When he died, I swore I'd never risk hurting anyone else with what I was. Luna stared at her, understanding flooding through her. That's why you never remarried. Why you always seem to keep everyone at arm's length. Power like ours isn't meant to be contained forever, Elena continued. It needs an outlet, a purpose. I thought I could manage it alone, could protect everyone by staying isolated. But watching you these past months, seeing how much stronger you are when you're not fighting yourself. She smiled sadly. I realized I was wrong. Kai stepped between them, his expression desperate. There has to be another option. Some other way to fix this without either of you dying. The prophecy is clear, Elena said gently. Two moon blessed, working as one. One to weave, one to anchor. The anchor doesn't survive. Then we don't do the ritual. Kai's voice was fierce. We find another way to help the wolves adapt, too. Kai. Luna touched his arm, and even without the mate bond, she could feel his anguish. Look around. Really look. He followed her gaze, taking in the clearing with new eyes. The blackthorn wolves were already showing signs of the breakdown Elena had warned about. Without the pack bonds to maintain their social structure, they were beginning to turn on each other. Two of them were circling each other with bared fangs, their alpha's death and the severed connections leaving them without any clear hierarchy. Even among the shadow pack, Luna could see the strain. Wolves who'd been mated for years were looking at each other with confusion and loss, trying to remember why they'd chosen each other without the mystical certainty that had guided them. It's not just about finding mates, Luna realized. The bonds maintain everything: pack loyalty, territorial instincts, the ability to shift without losing our humanity. Without them, we become nothing more than animals, Elena confirmed. Within weeks, maybe months, the more unstable wolves will lose themselves completely. The species will tear itself apart. A howl echoed across the mountains, long, mournful, filled with a loneliness that spoke to something deep in Luna's bones. It was answered by another, then another, until the air was filled with the sound of wolves calling out for connections they could no longer feel. How long do we have? Kai asked. To perform the ritual? A few days at most. Elena's expression was grim. The longer we wait, the more the spiritual realm will adapt to the absence of the bonds. After a certain point, even the ritual won't be able to restore them. Luna felt the weight of her decision settling over her like a shroud. She'd wanted freedom from the expectations others had placed on her, wanted the right to choose her own path. Now she faced the ultimate choice: sacrifice herself to save her species, or let them all face a future without the bonds that made them whole. There's something else, Elena said quietly. Something the prophecies don't make clear. The ritual requires perfect trust between the two moon-blessed. Absolute faith that each will fulfill their role. If there's any doubt, any hesitation, the ritual fails, Luna finished. And we both die for nothing. The clearing had grown quieter as the various wolves began to drift away, seeking solitude to process what they'd lost. Soon it was just Luna, Kai, and Elena standing among the ruins of Luna's fury, with Marcus's still form as a silent witness to the cost of power unchecked. "I need time to think," Luna said finally. Kai nodded, though she could see the protest in his eyes. "Whatever you decide, I'll stand by you. Even if I choose to die." His jaw clenched. "I'll hate it. I'll fight it. But..." He sighed. "I fell in love with your strength, Luna. Your determination to do what's right even when it costs you everything. I can't ask you to become someone else just to spare me pain." Elena watched this exchange with something that might have been approval. The prophecy speaks of a choice made in love, not fear. Whatever you decide, make sure it's for the right reasons. As if summoned by her words, a new voice cut through the mountain air, young, frightened, but determined. "Luna." They turned to see one of the enhanced cousins stumbling toward them, her artificial power flickering like a dying flame. Luna recognized her as Cora, barely 18, with Robert's pale eyes but none of his cruelty. "Something's wrong," Cora gasped, falling to her knees as she reached them. "The modifications Father made to us, they're breaking down. Without the pack bonds to stabilize them." As if to illustrate her words, silver light exploded from Cora's body in an uncontrolled burst, scorching the earth around her. She screamed, her back arching as the artificial power turned on itself. Luna was beside her in an instant, her hands glowing as she tried to siphon off some of the chaotic energy. "How many of you are there?" "3 here. Maybe a dozen more at the compound." Cora's voice was tight with pain. "We're all dying, Luna. The power he forced into us, it was never meant to exist without the natural bonds to contain it." Elena knelt on Cora's other side, her face grave. "This is what I was afraid of. The severing didn't just break mate bonds, it destabilized every supernatural connection in our world. The enhanced wolves, any human who's been touched by pack magic, even some of the oldest territorial wards. How long before they all break down?" Kai asked. "Hours. Maybe less." Elena met Luna's eyes. "The choice has been made for us, child. We perform the ritual now, or we watch our entire world collapse." Luna stared down at Cora, seeing her own face reflected in the girl's terrified eyes. Another victim of Robert's ambition, another life destroyed by the pursuit of power. She thought of Marcus, who'd died trying to protect her. Of Kai, who'd loved her despite the danger she represented. Of Elena, who'd hidden her own gifts for 40 years to keep others safe. "Okay," Luna said quietly. "Tell me what we need to do." Elena's smile was proud and heartbreaking all at once. "I'll anchor the bonds in the spirit realm. You'll weave them back into the physical world. But Luna, once we begin, there's no stopping. Even if you change your mind, even if you see me dying and want to save me, you have to complete the weaving. Do you understand?" Luna nodded, though her throat felt too tight for words. "The ritual requires a focus, something that represents the connections we're trying to restore." Elena looked around the clearing, her gaze settling on Marcus's still form. "Blood magic is the strongest, but..." "Use his blood," Luna said without hesitation. "He died trying to protect the bonds between people he loved. It's what he would want." Kai's hand found hers, squeezing gently. "Are you sure about this?" Luna looked at him, really looked, memorizing the way the sunlight caught the gold in his amber eyes, the strong line of his jaw, the scar on his forehead from some long-ago battle. Without the mate bond, she had to rely on her heart alone to tell her he was worth any sacrifice. "I'm sure," she said. "But Kai, if this works, if the bonds are restored, will you be able to feel me again? When I'm gone?" His eyes filled with tears he refused to let fall. "I'll carry you with me always. Bond or no bond." Elena began to trace symbols in the dirt with Marcus's blood, her movements precise and practiced. "The ritual will take everything I have," she said as she worked. "Once I begin anchoring the bonds in the spirit realm, I won't be able to stop. You'll have to weave them back into reality fast, the longer the bonds exist only in spirit form, the more unstable they become. Luna nodded, silver light already beginning to build beneath her skin. Around them, she could feel the supernatural world holding its breath, as if it sensed what was coming. "Elena," she said as the older woman completed the blood circle. "Thank you. For everything. For welcoming me, for teaching me, for finally finding the courage to use my power for something greater than hiding." Elena's smile was radiant despite the tears in her eyes. "It's been an honor, Luna Shadowmere." As Elena raised her hands and began to call upon 40 years of carefully contained power, as Luna prepared to weave the fate of their entire species back together, one thought echoed through her mind. Some choices were worth dying for. If you're still listening to this story up to this point, why don't you subscribe to this channel to continue getting impactful daily stories like this? We would be most grateful if you can do that to help boost this video to reach everyone. Thank you. Chapter 8. The eclipse moon hung above them like a silver eye, casting the world in shades of shadow and possibility. Luna had never seen anything more beautiful or more terrifying. Elena stood at the center of the blood circle, her arms raised to the darkened sky, power flowing from her in waves that made the very air shimmer. The symbols Marcus's blood had traced in the earth glowed with an otherworldly light, and Luna could feel the fabric of reality bending around them as Elena reached into the spirit realm. "I can see them," Elena whispered, her voice carrying harmonics that spoke of places beyond the physical world. "All the bonds, Luna. Thousands upon thousands of silver threads, cut clean through but still trying to find their other halves. They're in pain." Luna's own power responded to Elena's call, silver fire racing along her skin as she prepared to weave the severed connections back into existence. But as she reached out with her abilities, she felt something else, a presence in the spirit realm that hadn't been there before. "Elena, there's something." "The moon herself," Elena gasped, her eyes wide with wonder and terror. "She's here, Luna. The goddess who first blessed our kind with the ability to find our perfect matches. She's angry." The temperature in the clearing dropped 20 degrees in an instant, and frost began to form on the ground despite the summer warmth. When the voice came, it seemed to echo from everywhere and nowhere, ancient and inexorable as the turning of the stars. "Who dares unmake what I have woven?" Luna felt the words like physical blows, driving her to her knees even as she fought to maintain her connection to the ritual. Beside her, Kai staggered but remained standing, his mortal strength somehow enough to withstand the goddess's presence. "I did," Luna managed, forcing herself back to her feet. "I broke them. I'm trying to fix. The moon's laughter was the sound of glaciers breaking apart. "You think to repair what has taken millennia to create? Child of silver fire, do you know what you have done?" Elena's voice cut through the goddess's wrath, strong despite the power that was consuming her from within. "Show her, Luna. Show the moon what you've learned." Luna didn't understand at first, but as she opened her senses fully to the spirit realm, she began to see what Elena meant. The severed mate bonds weren't just broken, they were transforming. Where once there had been silver threads connecting souls without their conscious choice, now there were possibilities. Potential connections that could be forged not by divine decree but by free will. "You see it too," Luna breathed. "The bonds don't have to go back the way they were." Elena nodded, her form beginning to become translucent as she anchored herself deeper in the spirit realm. "The prophecy was never about restoring the old bonds, Luna. It was about creating new ones. Better ones." "Explain." The moon's voice had lost some of its fury, replaced by something that might have been curiosity. Luna closed her eyes, letting her power flow freely for perhaps the last time. As she did, she felt the broken bonds throughout the supernatural world, not as wounds now, but as opportunities. "The old bonds were beautiful," she said, speaking directly to the presence she could feel watching her every move. "But they gave people no choice. Wolves were bound to mates they might not truly love, trapped in relationships that fate decided for them. Some were happy, yes, but others." She thought of her parents, bound by destiny but destroyed by incompatibility. Of the young wolves she'd met who feared the moment they'd find their fated mate because they knew it would mean the end of their freedom to choose. I propose something different, Luna continued. Bonds that require mutual acceptance. Connections that grow stronger through choice rather than compulsion. Let wolves feel the potential for a perfect match, but give them the power to accept or reject it freely. The silence that followed was profound, filled only by the sound of Elena's labored breathing as the anchoring process consumed more and more of her life force. And the cost of this change, the moon asked finally. My power, Luna said without hesitation. All of it. The moon blessed abilities that have been passed down through my bloodline, I offer them as payment for this new way. And you, daughter of hidden light? The goddess's attention turned to Elena. What do you offer? Elena's smile was peaceful despite the silver fire that was slowly destroying her physical form. My life, willingly given. And the knowledge I've spent 40 years gathering, every secret of our kind, every understanding of how the bonds truly work. Let it all be used to create something better. The moon considered this, and in the silence Luna could feel the weight of eternity pressing down on them. Then, like dawn breaking over mountains, came a warmth that spoke of approval. Your sacrifice is acknowledged. Your wisdom is acceptable. But know this, what you create cannot be undone. If these new bonds prove weak, if they fail to sustain your species, there will be no second chances. We understand, Luna and Elena said in unison. Then let it begin. What followed was beyond anything Luna could have imagined. The power that flowed through her wasn't just her own anymore, it was the combined force of every moon blessed who had ever lived, channeled through Elena's sacrifice and blessed by the moon herself. She felt herself becoming a conduit for something vast and cosmic, her individual identity dissolving into the greater work of reweaving the bonds that held their world together. But these weren't the same bonds she destroyed. As Luna wove them back into existence, she imbued each one with choice. Where once there had been compulsion, now there was invitation. Where once there had been certainty, now there was the thrilling uncertainty of free will. She felt it happening across the world, wolves everywhere suddenly understanding that the hollow ache in their chests wasn't just loss, but opportunity. The potential to choose their own mates, to build bonds based on love and compatibility rather than mystical decree. In Scotland, the young wolf who'd lost his mate the week before found himself able to sense her again, but this time, the bond waited for both of them to accept it consciously. When they did, reaching for each other across the spiritual distance with full knowledge of what they were choosing, the connection that formed was brighter and stronger than anything the old bonds had produced. In the riverside pack, the alpha and his former mates sat across from each other at their kitchen table, feeling the potential for reconnection humming between them. They'd been bound by fate for 15 years, but now they had the chance to choose each other with full knowledge of each other's flaws and strengths. When they reached out simultaneously, accepting the bond with deliberate intention, their love deepened in ways they hadn't thought possible. But not all chose to reconnect. Some wolves, freed from bonds that had never truly fit, walked away from relationships that had been forced upon them by destiny. And that, Luna realized, was as it should be. It's working, Elena whispered, her voice growing fainter as more of her essence poured into the anchoring process. I can feel them choosing, Luna. All across the world, they're making the decision for themselves. Luna wanted to tell her to hold on, to find some way to survive the ritual, but she knew it was too late. Elena had given too much of herself to the spirit realm to ever fully return to the physical world. Thank you, Luna said instead, pouring all her gratitude and love into those two simple words. Elena's final smile was radiant. Take care of them, Luna. All of them. And remember, the strongest bonds are always the ones we choose. The light that had been Elena Hartwell flared once, brilliant as a star being born, and then gently faded into the larger radiance of the new bond network. She was gone, but her sacrifice had become part of something eternal. Luna felt the last of her moon-blessed power flow out of her, carrying with it the silver fire that had defined her since childhood. As the ritual completed itself, she collapsed to her knees, suddenly, profoundly mortal. The eclipse moon began to pass, normal moonlight returning to the clearing. The blood circle had burned itself out, leaving only clean earth behind. Marcus's body lay peaceful and still, his sacrifice honored by what they'd accomplished. Kai was beside Luna in an instant, gathering her into his arms. "How do you feel?" Luna took inventory of herself, expecting to find emptiness where her power had been. Instead, she found peace. For the first time in her life, she wasn't fighting to contain abilities that threatened to destroy everything she touched. She was just Luna, not the moon blessed, not a weapon, not a prophecy waiting to unfold. "Different," she said finally. "But not diminished. It's like I've finally become who I was always meant to be." "And what's that?" Before Luna could answer, she felt it, a gentle warmth against her consciousness, soft and questioning. The new bond network recognizing the potential connection between her and Kai, but waiting for them to choose. She looked at him, this man who'd loved her through prophecies and power, through rage and transformation. Without the mystical certainty of the old mate bond, she had to rely on her heart alone to tell her what she wanted. "Kai," she said softly. "I can feel the potential between us. The new bonds, they're offering us a choice." He nodded, his amber eyes serious. "I feel it too. But Luna, I want you to know that my answer doesn't depend on any mystical connection. Mate bond or no mate bond, powers or no powers, you're the woman I choose. You're the one I want to build a life with." Tears spilled down Luna's cheeks, tears of joy this time, not grief. "Even knowing that choosing this bond means choosing all of me? The woman who accidentally broke the world? Especially that woman." Kai's hand cupped her cheek, his thumb brushing away her tears. "You took responsibility for your mistakes, Luna. You sacrificed everything to fix what you'd broken. How could I not love someone with that kind of courage?" Around them, Luna could sense other wolves making similar decisions. Some of Kai's pack were reaching for their former mates, choosing to rebuild what they'd lost. Others were walking away from connections that had never been right for them. All of them were free to choose, and that freedom was the greatest gift Luna could have given them. "Yes," she whispered, and reached for Kai across the spiritual distance, accepting the bond that waited between them. The connection that formed wasn't the overwhelming, compulsive certainty of the old mate bonds. It was something gentler but no less powerful, a conscious choice to share their lives, their hearts, their futures. Luna could feel Kai's emotions not as an overwhelming flood, but as a warm presence at the edge of her awareness, there when she needed it but not drowning out her own thoughts. "How does it feel?" Kai asked, and Luna could sense his wonder through their new connection. "Like coming home," she said. "But better, because we both chose to be here." They held each other as dawn approached, two people who'd found each other not through destiny but through deliberate choice. Around them, the supernatural world was slowly adjusting to its new reality, wolves learning to choose their own paths, bonds forming based on love rather than fate. It wouldn't be perfect. Some would struggle with the freedom to choose, having depended on mystical certainty for so long. Others would make poor choices, selecting partners based on attraction or convenience rather than true compatibility. But they would learn, Luna thought. They would grow into this new gift of free will. "What happens now?" Kai asked as the first rays of sunlight touched the mountainside. Luna considered the question, feeling the weight of possibility rather than prophecy shaping her future. She was no longer the moon-blessed, no longer carrying the burden of cosmic power. But she was still Luna Shadowmere, the woman who'd helped reshape how love worked in the supernatural world. "Now we live," she said simply. "We build a pack where choice matters more than fate. We help other wolves learn to trust their hearts instead of just their instincts. We prove that bonds chosen freely are stronger than anything destiny could force upon us." Kai's smile was brilliant with promise. "Luna of the Shadowmere Pack. I like the sound of that." "Luna of the Shadowmere Pack," she repeated, testing how the title felt. Not a burden this time, but an honor earned through sacrifice and choice. As they rose to face their new future, Luna felt the absence of Elena's presence like a physical ache. But woven through that grief was gratitude, for the older woman's sacrifice, for the lessons she'd taught, for the love she'd shown by giving her life to ensure Luna's survival. The enhanced cousins approached hesitantly, their artificial powers now stable thanks to the new bond network. Cora knelt beside Marcus's body, her young face streaked with tears. "What do we do now?" she asked. "Without father, without the old ways." "You choose," Luna said gently. "That's what this was all about, giving everyone the right to choose their own path. Stay with us if you want to learn a different way. Go find other packs if that calls to you. The world is wider now than it was yesterday." One by one, the surviving members of both packs made their decisions. Some chose to stay, drawn by the promise of a pack built on choice rather than dominance. Others left to find their own paths, no longer bound by old loyalties or artificial connections. As the sun climbed higher, painting the mountain clearing in shades of gold and hope, Luna stood hand in hand with the man she'd chosen and who had chosen her in return. The future stretched ahead of them, uncertain but bright with possibility. Behind them lay the old world of fate and compulsion. Ahead lay something unprecedented in supernatural history. A world where love was freely given and received, where bonds were built on choice rather than destiny. It was exactly what Luna had dreamed of when she'd first run from her father's house, searching for a place where she could belong by choice rather than birth. She'd found it at last, not in a place but in a decision, the decision to love and be loved freely, without the weight of prophecy or the compulsion of mystical bonds. The moon blessed was gone, her cosmic power spent in service of something greater than herself. But Luna's Shadowmere remained, chosen and choosing, ready to help build a new world where the heart mattered more than fate. Thank you for watching this video. Subscribe, like and share this video to continue listening to this type of story daily and also, to appreciate this community too. I would like to hear your wonderful opinion about this story. Please comment below.